Okay, hi everyone. Hope you've been having a good day at our virtual open house, and thank you for attending this special talk. I'm Isabel from TAF DC, and we're really fortunate to have our guest Brigit Schnetzlinger join us today for our open house. So if you're here, it may be no secret to you that the fashion industry is one of the most polluting industries in the world today. But as head of global business development for functional wear at Lenzing, Brigit is at the forefront of sustainable change-making for functional clothing and footwear. But first, a bit on Lenzing. The Lenzing Group sustainably produces specialty fibers made from renewable raw wood material. So if you've joined our TENCEL fashion design competition or maybe the Art of Shoes competition this year, Lenzing may be a familiar name to you because all sponsored fabrics in these competitions are TENCEL fabrics. But you may not need to look further than your own wardrobe, because if you've seen TENCEL tagged onto your favorite shirt or bed sheets, that's a Lenzing product. Lenzing is a fashion innovation leader committed to the principles of sustainable management with very high environmental standards. Lenzing adds value for consumers with high-quality materials while redirecting the fashion industry towards a closed-loop economy. Here's a quick video that shows you how. So that was a quick bit on Lenzing. And because of these solutions, even your favorite sneakers and workout clothes can be made sustainably. So if you own a pair of Toms or Allbirds or bought sportswear from New Balance or Patagonia, you've bought a Lenzing product that has changed the fashion industry for the better. So if you want to know how this is all possible, you're in the right place. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll let Brigit take it away from here.
Yeah, thank you, Isabel, for inviting me today to present at the Textile and Fashion Industry Training Center to share also Lenzing views on the environmental pollutions and how we can improve the environmental footprint. So thank you so much for giving us the possibility today. I will start sharing my screen now. So can you see my screen?
We can't see the screen yet, but I can go ahead and share the slides from my side, and then you can just let me know how to how to navigate. Sound good?
Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, right. Just give me a second.
Oh, maybe it works now. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can. Okay.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay, so we can start from there. Yeah, first, I would like to start my presentation to give you some points telling about the environmental challenges we are facing today, and especially focusing on the textile industry, because this is where we are coming from and where we do have most experience in Lenzing. And then I would like to talk a little bit about the footwear industry in more detail and what Lenzing can do to contribute to those problems, or how we can contribute to solve some of the problems that are right now faced by the industry. So the first environmental challenge that the textile industry is facing, which has also been shown very nicely in the video, is waste. So about 73% of the clothing ends up in landfills. This means that right now less than 15% of all clothes produced are collected for recycling, and not only 1% of all materials used for textiles is turned into textiles again. This means that the textile industry is a very linear industry. So it's about take, make, and waste. And the future is definitely more about creating this industry more circular, just also to try to avoid more waste. There is a growing population at the earth, and so we need to start now to fight this waste problem. For some of the materials like polyamide fibers or polyesters, all synthetic-based materials, it takes 20 to 200 years to biodegrade, so they will be along for a very long time. The second biggest problem in the textile industry, or the second biggest environmental challenge, is water pollution and pollution in total. So about 20% of all industrial water pollution comes from garment manufacturing. This includes also the very dirty dyeing and finishing industry. So this consumes 5 trillion liters of water annually. And water is, as we all know, one of the most scarce resources in the world. So this is also something, if we don't stop consuming water as we do now, then there will be a problem in the future. Whereas water pollution refers to the water quality and how we pollute the water, there is also water scarcity. Water scarcity means in relation to the water available in certain areas or certain countries. So if you take water from areas where there's already less water anyway, then it's even a bigger problem for this region, because then we really dry out those countries. There has been a lot of noise about the Aral Sea, which has been due to cotton cultivation dried out already. So this means water scarcity is about exploitation of water in certain areas. So first waste, second water is biggest challenges. And looking at some statistics of the El MacArthur Foundation, and I really encourage everybody who is interested in exploring or finding out more about the negative impacts on the textile industry. The El MacArthur Foundation has quite nice scientific studies and elements to learn more about these topics. I just want to give you a rough overview to get some awareness for the topic. And so we see that resource consumption is one of the big impacts. So if we keep consuming like we do now, then the consumption of non-renewable resources, and this includes the production of synthetic fibers, fertilizers to grow cotton, chemicals to produce dyeing and finishing of the fibers, then it will triple within the next 30 years. The second biggest impact is the global warming potential. So in this nice graphic, you can see that if we, again, keep consuming as we do today, then the textile industry's share of carbon budget will increase to 26%, which is even higher than the international flights and shipping industry. I also mentioned here the Science-Based Targets Initiative. So this is actually based on the Paris Agreement, the international agreement, where many textile and fashion companies already joined to also start fighting the global warming and the CO2 emissions. And Lenzing is also one of the little members joining this initiative. So we're the first wood-based fiber producer who has joined this target initiative. And a third big block, which is lined out here, is the microfibers in the ocean. So what many might not know, that when clothes are washed, they release microfibers into the ocean. So domestic laundry is one of the biggest contributors to microplastic. So it's, I think, I don't know the exact numbers, but tons of microfibers added to the oceans every year by just shedding off in the washing. Microfibers are very small fiber particles, so they are less than 1 millimeter, and they cannot be filtered out in the municipal wastewater treatment facilities. And this means that this plastic just doesn't go away, it just gets smaller, but it will still pollute our oceans and maritime life. So to sum up those challenges, and I've on purpose only focus on 3 of them because there is, of course, a lot more around, but I want to keep it also sharp. So the biggest challenges we are facing right now is waste, textile waste, carbon footprint, and water footprint. Taking a closer look to the footwear market, because right now we have been talking about the textiles in total, and footwear being a big part of the textile and footwear industry market at all. So the global footwear market is growing every year. So in 2018, the total market was 24 billion pairs of shoe produced every year. And by 2018, the textile share was about 20%, and textiles in footwear is growing constantly. There is manifold reasons why textiles is growing. On the one hand, we have new technologies like the knitted shoes. There is the sneaker trend, which is not the trend anymore. Sneakers are all over. So I think it's a big category in the meantime who wear sneakers on every purpose. They're comfortable. It's also a fashion statement. So many people like to wear the colors of the shoe fitting to the outfits of the clothing. They want to change a lot. And so textiles also offer more versatility and possibilities to be more fashionable and also more flexible in different styles than other materials. So this is a statistic which actually shows what I just mentioned. So that part or the portion of the textiles in the footwear industry is catching up, or it's rising like hell actually. So if you look at the other materials, so leather, for example, rubber, plastic, they are decreasing, whereas textile is in a constant ride in growing. A different statistic looking at the same numbers from a different point of view. So if we look at the total footwear market today, the vast majority, so in this slide, 57% is synthetics, about 25% is leather materials, and 18% textiles. And looking on the environmental impact of the different categories or material categories, we can see that leather actually has the biggest impact on the ecosystem quality. Synthetics have the biggest impact on resource depletion, so they consume a lot of resources. And textile actually has the biggest impact on the water, freshwater withdrawal. This is on the one hand, as for textiles in this case, we look at also a lot of cotton. So cotton is cultivated, needs to be irrigated, and this is also why the water impact of cotton is quite high compared to other materials. Coming to more global trends in society and products. So what we can see right now is that in almost any industry, there is an increasing awareness for eco-friendly products. So it's all about reducing, recycling, and upcycling. So I think this is the society momentum for environmental initiatives, environmental products. So we can see that there is a lot of awareness going on around reducing plastic all over the world. There is laws, initiatives to ban plastic waste, ban plastic products all over. There was Greta von Thunberg, who has raised a lot of awareness around environmental topics. Another big society trend is e-commerce and online selling. So this has already seen in the recent COVID-19 situation a lot of increase. So while the young generation has already used e-commerce a lot, or COVID-19 has now also accelerated online selling all over the world during all ages, so to say. And the nice thing about e-commerce is that in comparison to buying a product from the shelf, you also have the possibility of storytelling and educational information. So whereas you might not have the chance to put the whole story, the environmental credentials of a product on a shoe in the shelf, but in the internet there is the possibility to also provide all the proofs, provide all the information that the consumer feels good about buying sustainable products. And last but not least, nowadays consumer is getting more critical, so they want to know where the product is coming from. They want to know who made my product. So there's also a bigger demand for transparency and traceability. Coming to the footwear products again, so as laid out before, there is a rising popularity in textile materials. Together with this trend for textile materials, there's also more eco-design. So it's about using less materials, using less components. So as a footwear designer, you will know that a typical shoe consists of 50 to 40 different components glued together, attached to each other. So it's a very complex industry, a very complex way to create the shoe. And also end-of-life considerations are coming more into focus. So we have seen Adidas coming up with some nice solutions like the loop shoe or the parley shoe. So they already did a great job in creating some awareness on the consumer level of what's possible. And I think this is the way we need to go. So end of life is very important, especially if we see how many products and shoes end up in landfill. Because they just simply cannot be deassembled at the end of life. They cannot be like clothing. So clothing can be collected and recycled, but for shoes, it's more of a problem because if everything is glued together, it's difficult to deassemble and collect the shoe at the end of life. There is also a lot about customization and individualization of products. So people like to buy from smaller brands or from more individual possibilities. In the industry, there's a lot of optimization, digitalization, 3D print, 3D knit going on. So we also can see that where there has been a lot of sampling in the past, there is now a lot of digital tools possible to avoid also the overproduction of sampling and products which never find the way to a store. So what can Lenzing do to help fighting those problems, help fighting the environmental problems, and also looking at the challenges we have in different industries, looking at the different trends. So how does Lenzing or TENCEL fibers now come into place to offer better solutions? I would like to tell you a little bit of who is Lenzing, so you get a better picture of what we offer, what possibilities are around, and give you a broader overview before going again more into details for footwear. If we look at the fibers available on the world market, we distinguish synthetic fibers from natural polymers and inorganic substances. And again, the majority right now available is synthetic fibers. So about 60% of the world fibers used is synthetic fibers, which is non-renewable resources, which stays around for years or for hundreds of years because it just doesn't biodegrade. Plastic only gets smaller, it doesn't go away. When we look at the area for natural materials, we decide in protein-based. It's basically all animal-based fibers like wool, silk, angora, cashmere, and so on. And there is the group of cellulose-based fibers. The most known are the cotton and bast fibers like cotton, flax, hemp, jute. About 24-25% of the global market is cotton fibers. And if you follow the green arrows, you can see where Lenzing actually is located. So we are a manufacturer of wood-based fibers. Wood-based is viscose fiber, modal fibers, lyocell fibers, cupro, and so on. And there are also some others, like from inorganic substances. This is carbon fibers, glass fibers, metallic, and so on. But this is just to give you an idea of where Lenzing is located in the whole fiber world. Talking about numbers again, so the wood-based fibers account for 6% of the total market today. So what is Lenzing doing? So we actually come from the wood. So we take wood, we buy wood, trees, we turn them into wood chips, turn them into pulp, and then produce fibers. And this is where Lenzing stops. So we are only a fiber producer. We don't produce any yarns, we don't produce any fabrics, and we don't produce any end products. So Lenzing really controls the backwards supply chain. So we really come from the raw material forest and we turn it into fiber. So we have our expertise since 80 years to produce only wood-based fibers. However, our business model is that we work very close until the very end of the supply chain. So we want to know how our products are used. We want to also advise the industry how to use and utilize our fibers best. We want to avoid that they are making trial and errors. So this is why we also have business development teams all over the world and customer service teams all over the world to support the partners in the supply chains to use our fibers best and also to promote them the right way, because we want the world to know about the good essentials and credentials of our fibers. And we're producing 1 million tons of fiber every year. This means Lenzing is one of the big players for cellulosic fibers in the world. When it comes to fiber brands, and this is what you might be more familiar, so Lenzing is the company name, but if you buy the products, you might be more familiar with our product brands. And the most popular product is the TENCEL brand. So TENCEL is used for textiles. So when it comes to denim products, innerwear, active sportswear, or home textiles, also footwear, our TENCEL brand is the brand for all textile applications. Lenzing also has other products, just to mention shortly. So in the non-woven area, we offer our Lyocell brand, which is used for facial masks, for baby diapers, for wipes, and all hygienic products. And we also have an industrial area, which is also growing because our fibers are biodegradable. So this is an area where the fibers are used in, for example, agricultural applications, like in this picture, ropes and twines to grow tomatoes, or also food packaging. So you can see the nets here, which has traditionally been always plastic and synthetics. And we are already very good positioned in the organic food sector to also use our fibers for food packaging. Coming closer to the shoe area, as this is what we're talking today. So when it comes to the use of TENCEL fibers in the shoes, we have actually developed a complete shoe concept. What does it mean? So when Lenzing started with the footwear segment, and we actually started about 4 to 5 years ago. So this means that given that Lenzing is a company with 80 years experience, the footwear sector is still very new to Lenzing. And because textiles in shoes are growing, so this was one of the reasons that this is just getting more important for shoes. That's why we also decided to take a closer look for this area. So what we basically did when we started the whole footwear segment, we just took a random shoe, we cut it into half, we analyzed all the different materials which have been used in a traditional shoe, and analyzed if those materials can be replaced by our wood-based fibers. The R&D team succeeded, so they actually did a lot of development work to say that, or to prove that our fibers are able to be used in the upper of the shoes. So the upper is the most obvious. So in a textile shoe, it can be a woven upper, so like a typical canvas fabric for Converse shoes, for example, or knitted uppers, which are very popular right now. They can be used for the inner lining, woven or knitted inner lining, whatever the purpose of the shoe is. They can be used for paddings, for enforcement, so it can be used for also laces, for elastic bands, for webbings, so for all the different components. Our fibers can also be used for the insoles. So in the insole area, it can be also the strobel sole, different other non-woven materials, and our fibers can even be used in the outsole of the shoe. So it might not be 100% solution everywhere, but at least we can add certain cellulosic components in the different shoe components. Whereas in the upper, it's possible to use 100% of our fibers. In the outsole, it will be a minority because the outsole is still majority rubber, EVA, TPU, or other materials. But you can also add TENCEL powder in the outsole. This brings me to the different products we offer for footwear. So the most obvious, which you might have already seen or heard about, is the textile fiber. So the textile fiber, which can be used for upper, for lining, for laces, for all textile parts of the shoe. Then we also offer a non-woven fiber, which I mentioned in the very beginning with the different applications. Non-wovens in the shoe can be used as substrates for coatings. This is basically artificial leather. So if you think about synthetic or artificial leather, it's a woven or non-woven substrate, which is coated by polyurethane or any other coatings. And that's also a big market, especially when it comes to winter applications. Then non-wovens can also be used as enforcements, also for different other padding materials. For strobel soles, there's a lot of ways that non-wovens can be used in the shoe. And the powder, we also offer powder made of our cellulosic fibers or materials. They can be used for foams, so open cell foams that can be used in the padding of the shoe, in the insole, and the powder can also be incorporated in rubber materials, EVA or TPU, to add a certain element for the outsole. When it comes to fiber properties, so why can TENCEL be used in the shoe? So what's the benefits? What's the selling points? We are coming down to three main selling criteria or main benefits of our fibers. The first one is the most obvious one these days because sustainability is around everywhere. Almost any renowned footwear brand or textile company is looking to get more sustainable products. And this is also the door opener, which we see now for our fibers, because TENCEL fibers have a very well known reputation in the areas of sustainability. So TENCEL fibers have been around for 30 years now. So this means they're well approved. It's not something that the industry doesn't know. So the industry is already very familiar with our fibers, and also the sustainable credentials are well proven, and there's a lot of documentation around there. I will talk a lot about the different aspects in a minute. So what does it mean? But just to summarize, when it comes to sustainability, there are basically also three areas. It's botanic origin. It means that our fibers are all wood-based. The second biggest argument is the sustainable production. And the third one is coming to the end of life of the product again. The fiber is in the end biodegradable or even compostable. I will talk about this later. The second biggest element is comfort. So we all know that the shoe has to be comfortable because we spend a lot of time in our shoes, and so it's also very important that shoes are comfortable. And our fibers, TENCEL fibers, they add comfort by being breathable. So this means that you feel better in the shoe because you don't sweat that much. It's not creating so much heat. So it's a breathable fiber. And once you feel the fibers, you can also feel it's a very soft fiber. It's gentle on the skin. And those partners who have used it for the very first time, they're very excited about the feeling and the soft touch of the fiber because it just doesn't feel like plastic. It feels very, very, very nice. The third big part of fiber properties or selling criteria is performance. So our fibers are performance fibers. First is moisture management. So our fibers take up moisture and release it to the environment again. I will talk about this again later. They are also unfavorable for bacteria growth. They're not antibacterial, so they don't kill any bacteria, but because of their inherent properties, they prevent bacteria from growing. And last but not least, lyocell fibers are the strongest fiber in our portfolio. So compared to viscose or other cellulosic fibers, they have very high wet tenacity, which means that also when processed by the industry, they're the strongest fiber and therefore the best fibers also for shoes. Starting with the environmental benefits of the fibers and starting with the botanic origin. So what does it mean? So first of all, you might ask yourself, why is it good to cut down a tree to create fibers? So this is something that has to be addressed from the very beginning because there is not the same understanding of trees all over the world. And therefore, it's very important to distinguish the good from the bad ones, as everywhere you have the good and the bad ones. And so in this case, it means that it's very important to look at where does the wood come from. So is it from sustainably managed forests and certified? So in Lenzing, actually, we are using 100% of the wood we are using is from managed forestry. This means there is no deforestation, there is no endangered forests, there is no endangered species. So it's all controlled and managed forestry. There are two well-known certificates which actually control or confirm the managed forestry at the consumer level, which is the FSC and the PEFC. The FSC is worldwide the best-known standard. The PEFC is more for the European area, so it's more in the European forests because the ownership structure of the woods is different than globally. So these are the main two standards, and 100% of the fibers, 100% of the trees Lenzing is using to create fibers are FSC or PFC controlled or certified. When it comes to fiber production, so as mentioned already in the video and afterwards in the slides, so we start from wood chips, we create pulp, and then we create either TENCEL Lyocell or TENCEL modal fibers. For about half of our fibers, we also produce the pulp. And when we produce the pulp ourselves, we have a wood utilization of 100%, which means we do not throw away a single part of the tree. So when we get the tree, the trunk, into our factory, we are using 100%. This means if you look at the tree, about 40% can be turned into textile fibers, into dissolving pulp. 10% of the wood can be turned into byproducts. So what I always find very exciting is that xylose, you might have heard xylose is the wooden sugar, which is used in almost any chewing gum. So next time you maybe have some awareness for xylose. Then there is also acetic acid as a byproduct of the pulp production, which is used in the food industry. And there is sodic sulfur, which is used in the detergent industry. So there's different byproducts of the pulp production that can be turned into other valuable products. And the rest of the wood, which cannot be used for other products, is actually turned into biomass and used to also create energy for our fiber production. So using renewable energy for our pulp production, of course. The TENCEL Lyocell production is a very unique one. So if you look at different cellulosic fibers, you have viscose fiber, modal fiber, and lyocell fibers. And the lyocell fibers, and I didn't mention that before, so lyocell is actually the generic name of TENCEL fiber. So TENCEL is the brand name, and lyocell is the generic fiber name. And lyocell fibers have gained a very good reputation because they are produced in a closed loop production, which is a very eco-friendly production process. It's not like viscose, a chemical process to turn pulp into fiber and to break it down. It's more a mechanical process where you use a solvent and water, and this can be recovered to almost 100%. So therefore, this closed loop production process uses very little energy. So the CO2 emissions are very low, and it uses up to 95% less water than cotton production, for example. Coming to the end of life of the product, so what happens to products containing TENCEL Lyocell or modal fibers after use? So just assuming it's 100% of our fibers, because this only accounts for 100% of products made from our fibers. So our fibers are all biodegradable and compostable under industrial, home, soil, and marine conditions, and thus can fully revert back to nature. This is a very, very important statement, and this really distinguishes us from other fibers. So as you might be very well aware, synthetic fibers, so polyester, polyamide, nylon, polyurethane, so all the synthetic fibers, they will stay around for hundreds of years in our environment, and there are some biodegradable variants around, but these just break down into smaller parts. And there is a difference between biodegradable and compostable. So compostable is even better than biodegradable. Compostable means that after the fiber breaks down, the soil which is left behind is in such a good condition that you can grow food and there is no toxins or whatever in the soil left behind. So that's the even higher standard. These are the different certificates Lenzing has derived for the different fibers. So you can see that our fibers are certified to be compostable or biodegradable in different conditions. So it's the industrial compost, the home compost, and the soil. You can also see that for marine, because there is no soil in the seawater, that's why for marine and for water, fresh water, we do have the biodegradable certificates. Which means that they're also, so even if for whatever case the product after end of life ends up to be in the ocean, they can fully revert back to nature. So they're also in seawater, in marine conditions, they do not create any microplastics or are harmful for the fish. So this was now covering all the sustainability topics of our fibers. Now talking a little bit about comfort and performance, and then I will already be at the end of my presentation. When it comes to comfort, pressability, so the lyocell fibers support the temperature regulating properties through their moisture management. This means they take up moisture very quickly from the feed or from the skin and then release it to the outside. And this moisture management actually is like a temperature regulating functionality. On this picture, you can see the surface of different fibers. So you can see tencel fibers versus wool and cotton fibers in a microscopic surface. You can see that tencel fibers are very smooth. This means why they feel so soft and smooth on the skin. Whereas wool, you can see that the shade of the wool, so it sometimes can feel scratchy or itchy. And cotton also has a rougher surface. This means that tencel fabrics feel very soft. We talked about moisture management already. And unfavorable for bacteria growth. So you can imagine that if moisture is carried away from the skin, then the skin stays dry. So there's no water or sweat film on the skin. And actually, this moisture, which usually is formed by sweat, is the food for bacteria. So in other words, if there is no sweat, if there is no moisture on the skin, there is no food for bacteria. And this is why it prevents bacteria from growing. Again, it's not killing bacteria, which is also good for the skin flora. So we don't kill any also good bacteria for the skin, from the skin. Now I would like to also talk about some innovations, because the Lenzing and TENCEL fibers have been around for a while, but Lenzing is leading in different, especially sustainable environments. So I talked in the very beginning, when we talked about waste and talked about water usage, that our industries, no matter what it is, if it's textile or if it's any other products, is still very linear economy. And I just want to explain a little bit what is circular economy, what does it mean? So linear economy means that the product is produced and ends up in waste. Then we already see a lot of dynamics going on in recycling economy. So there is already a lot of efforts to give products a second or a third life. So you can see that there's some loops here. So give products a second life, third life, and before it ends up in landfill, so you can recycle the products, collect and recycle sometimes. For recycled polyester, which is actually right now very popular, and in my personal opinion, one reason why it's so popular is that it is just easy to implement, because companies don't have to change their processes, don't have to change a lot in their operations, because they simply replace virgin polyester by recycled polyester, and this is why it has gained so much popularity in the past, which is good. And I think there are some companies which did a great job in promoting this and creating awareness at the consumer level that the use of polyester is not good. But recycled polyester only gives polyester a second life. So it usually comes from plastic bottles. And so it gives plastic bottles a second life to be turned into a shoe or garment or whatever. But at the end of the life cycle of this shoe or garment, it also ends up at landfill. So what the whole industry is aiming for, to have more circular solutions, which means to keep materials in the production flow again and again and again, and to prevent them from being wasted. So this is more or less the definition of circular economy, and this is what we are aiming for. This is what also Lenzing is driving to get more products into circularity. One of our circular products is our Refibra technology, which is groundbreaking. So this is really a fantastic product. I mentioned in the very beginning, talking about our fibers, that our fibers are wood-based. So usually they're all wood-based. And for this Refibra technology, we take still part of the raw material wood, but we also collect cotton waste from textile waste, and also waste from the industry, so from a product production. Then this industrial and post-consumer waste is turned into cotton scraps and turned into pulp. And for this Refibra technology, we actually blend wood pulp and the cotton waste pulp and we create, again, very high quality fibers out of this mix. The vision of Lenzing is right now we are using 30% of cotton waste and 70% of wood. And the vision is to actually increase the percentage of the cotton waste to 50%. We still need to have a certain percentage of wood to be able to keep a certain quality of the end product. The second innovation which I would like to highlight today is our Eco Color technology. Usually fibers come in white color, and again, referring back to what I mentioned in the very beginning. So Refibra is fighting the waste problem, and the Modal Color technology is fighting the water problem. So usually fibers are dyed, and the dyeing industry is a very dirty industry, consuming a lot of water, chemicals, dye stuff. And our Modal fibers with Eco Color technology, they come already in colors. So this means that this fiber does not have to be dyed in further steps. And therefore, it really saves a lot of water, energy, and has a still lower carbon footprint than the fibers itself already. Yeah, just one more slide to the color technology. And last but not least, also a trend which I mentioned at the trends in the beginning, transparency and traceability are increasing, or the need for transparency and traceability are increasing. So Lenzing is good and also talks about being good. This means that our fibers, so for example, this slide shows how our fibers are in comparison to generic lyocell fibers. I don't go too much into detail with this one. I just want to spread the message that we actually, Lenzing shares this information with our customers. So we are open to the industry, so really want to work in partnerships with the different suppliers to improve also the whole industry and improve the partners. So we really want to help the textile industry to also get better, become better, use better materials. Maybe one highlight, which you can see very well in this slide, you see the light blue bar is the water scarcity. And in this slide, you can also see that for cotton, for example, the highest impact is for water. So cultivating cotton means that you need a lot of water to irrigate cotton, to grow cotton. So for cotton, actually, water is the worst impact. I can also highly recommend this MSI score. So MSI means Material Sustainability Index. So whenever you design any products, whenever you want to look at the environmental impact of a material, then you can go to the Material Sustainability Index, which is a tool made by the Sustainable Apparel Coalition. It's a database which is publicly available for free in the internet. It contains, I don't know, 60, 70, 80 different materials, and you can compare, like in this slide, you can compare different materials, what is their environmental impact. So I highly recommend this tool also for your future work. I think this is my last slide of today's presentation. So we also work a lot towards transparency, because we also don't want that the industry is cheating on their partners. There's a lot of greenwashing around. So we also want to make sure that people get what they pay for. Therefore, we have an identification system. We have tracking and tracing systems in place. So we work in cooperation with Textile Genesis on a blockchain system to have the fiber to retail traceability. So where you, in the end, you can just take your cell phone, scan the tag, and you can really follow back the whole supply chain, and you can see the impact, who made your product, what is the impact. It's a very exciting tool. We are working a lot with the supply chain in trying to improve the whole supply chain, and we also have a branding and certification system with hang tags to also show the final product to the end consumer. Yeah. This has been a lot of information. Happy to share anything whenever you are interested in knowing more about it. Key takeaways of today's presentation. There's still way more to share. You can also look at our sustainability report on our website. But the key takeaways is Lenzing solutions to change the industry for better. It's responsible sourcing. So we really take care of where the product is coming from. The production is a lower footprint, water footprint, CO2 footprint, any other footprints. So we have LCAs looking at different criteria. Lenzing is the leader for the industry, so we always work on sustainable innovations. And we have high transparency and partnerships, so we don't just do everything by ourselves. We like to partner with the industry to improve the whole industry. Thank you so much for your for this time, for your time today, and I'm happy to answer some of your questions now.
Okay, thanks so much, Brigit, for the really informative talk. I think we learned a lot about like the state of the industry and like all these like really incredible innovations that Lenzing's doing. I think we have time for one question, and I think this question I have kind of like speaks for maybe some of our like startup brands who, you know, it's their kind of first time venturing into the industry, but it may like taking that sustainability leap may seem like a lot for them, even if they want to do it. So is there sort of any, for these like startup brands, do you have any like recommendations of how brands can cost effectively like be sustainable or reduce their footprint?
Well, I think the first message I want to bring here is that it's not rocket science to use our fabrics. It's really something that they are available, they are around, there are more and more suppliers offering fabrics and products containing our fibers. Some add up of the costs, but then again, if you look at the total cost of the product, it's not the fiber which is adding the most costs. And I think what I learned by working with startup brands, and we do work actually also a lot with startup brands. Some of you might be familiar with Allbirds. So Allbirds, the US shoe brand, which is very well known for sustainability. They have been founded in 2016, so it's a quite young company, and they are so successful. And they're fully building their business strategy on using our products, our fibers. And so the message I want to give here is that what I like about startups is they are so passionate, because they know what they stand for. They really want to convey their message. And I think Lenzing is more than happy and always open to help also surveying this message. So we do also sometimes on our social media channels promote those brands, promote those startups also to help them also gaining more interest, because we really see that what startups unites is that they really are passionate about what they're doing and they spread a good message.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's just very inspiring what startups are able to do with the passion they have. We do have a question from the audience that I want to take in. Jonathan asked how long it takes for TENCEL material to break down. Perhaps you can address that real quick.
Yes, thank you for the question. I had prepared a slide. So this is also something that we did test. So a TENCEL material, so we did this certificates and all according to the European standards. So this is all scientific work behind. And we also did, because we also wanted to know ourselves, or experience ourselves. We just took a shoe upper, which has a height of about 2 or 2.5 millimeter. We just buried it into soil. We took it out every second week, and after 14 weeks, so 3 months, after 14 weeks, the fabric was completely gone.
Okay, no, that's awesome. I think that's a really good timeline. I think we are just about done. So I think if we have any extra questions for Brigit, I think you can drop them in this chat, and we'll try to see if there's a way we can shuffle them back and maybe answer them for you, because we want to make sure that there's enough time for our really other exciting talk with our TAFTC alumni and graduates who are kind of striking it out and really, as Brigit kind of says, taking their passion forward. So if you're really interested in sustainability, we do have a sustainable fashion supply chain course in fashion business. You can ask about that in our sessions. If you're interested in footwear, we have our whole footwear diploma. And finally, we also have our TENCEL Art of Shoes design competition, where you actually get to like design with these fabrics in mind and like make your own sneaker mini collection. So there's always an opportunity to get your hands on these fabrics and what they kind of look like in your day-to-day collections. So yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Brigit, and again, so much for your time. Really appreciate your insights and your sharing about how the industry is, but also how we as like fashion startups can also make that change starting as soon as we find that passion. So
yeah, thank you also from my side and from Lenzing for this opportunity to present today, because I want to make one last statement. I think that designers and fashion designers, they are very important in exploring materials, because I think one of the mistakes that many companies do is that they just take one material and they just switch to another one. And so I think it's very important to include the designers from the very beginning, because if they see and touch products, they can really make an impact. And so I think it's very important to address these topics. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for good. So yeah, everyone in here, either you can go to our sessions and meet some of our program advisors, or stay on board and we'll have our panel talk coming up soon. So thanks again, everyone. Take care, stay safe, see you around. All right.